Hello and welcome to my guide uh, of commanding AI in ARMA 2. Most of the guides I've seen, there were about two of them I saw that were pretty well-known guides on the forums, on the biz forums. Um, they go into general gameplay with the player integrated as an AI team, with the player in command of the AI. What I wanted to do was essentially just go through how the AI reacts to all of the different commands you can assign to it, and also the different functions such as formations they can change, and basically run through the whole list and see what kind of actions they can perform while they are under your command. So what I'm going to do is just make a quick add some stuff in the editor and just no scripting whatsoever, just using the in-game content, just have the AI go at it with each other. And I will not play any part. I'm not going to be shooting at stuff. I'm just going to be observing what the AI is doing in my team as they come against contacts and such. So what I'm going to do is I am using the British Add-on Forces DLC, and I'd like to put a British infantry section. I want to keep it kind of small, so we will go with a fire team. Okay, it says no player was selected, so you come in here and this is going to be a little bit of a editor guide, if you will. You can learn how to make a quick thing in editor from this too. So you see control, this is non-playable, we want to change that to player. So now I will be the team leader of this fire team, which is a 4-man fire team. And it will give us a vehicle. I'll give us a Land Rover. Empty, cars, desert, off-road. So that'll be our Land Rover, off-road. And that'll be our Land Rover. And what I'll do is pit us up against a insurgent fire team in Loy Manaras. This is the closest village. So I'll go here in groups. Let's see what the smallest insurgents I think are up for. Yeah, insurgents. Or actually, I think it's militias for the Pakistani stuff. Infantry, militia, I think patrol would be like 4 people. Okay, so 5 people. And what I'll do, whoops, I forgot to do something. Erase that. Where it says, oh, it doesn't have it. You have to come in and actually do it for each unit. But I was going to change it so the probability of them starting there is placement radius. So okay, they'll start here. I'll mess with that, and I'll just give them a waypoint, and this will change their behavior. I'll give them a guard waypoint with a placement radius of 500. So within 500-meter radius, this guard waypoint will be there. It doesn't really need a radius for guard waypoint, but combat mode, we will say open fire and engage at will. Formation, I don't really care about that. Speed, behavior, we will set them to combat behavior so they're ready to go already. So essentially when the game starts, because this is the first waypoint they have, they'll open fire and engage at will, and they'll be in a combat mode already. And the guard waypoint will basically make it so the computerized system within the game will direct their attention to wherever enemy units would be found. And actually, I didn't notice that, but there's actually shows where the placement radius would be for that waypoint. It's actually kind of big. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Make it 100 and maybe 250 would be about half that size. That's pretty good range radius. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to do is, I don't have any end mission script or anything like that, or a trigger. What's going to happen is I'll order my team into the off-road, and we will go and take care of this threat in Loy Manara. So, and before I do that, I'll go through some of the listing of commands and show you what they do. So we'll go preview. And here we are. Here's one team member, and here's the off-road, and here's another. I guess the other dude is behind there. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to use third-person view and also the command view, so you can see how the AI reacts. And I want to get a little bit away from that Land Rover. And I apologize if my bloom or post-processing effects annoy people, but I just kept the normal settings for the game, so I don't have performance and quality issues. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and stand right here, and I'm going to use the command view. As you can see, we're already in a wedge formation. A wedge formation is the default formation for our team. Now you have different ways of commanding. You can press spacebar and you can command them that way. You'll see a little caret come up and they can move different places. So that's like a context related command. The other way you can command is you can press backspace to bring up the menu, and then press spacebar, or actually press tilde key, and then you can have basically you can have a menu from 1 to 0 on the number keys, and when you press each one of those buttons, each one of those numbers, you'll go into the menu for that different command. So I'm going to go sequentially, and we'll go to the move command menu. So the first thing up here is number 1, return to formation. This is basically if you have ordered your team or a team member to move somewhere and you want him to return back into the formation and again form as a wedge or whatever your formation is, then you would order them to return to formation. And essentially they will return into the formation and orientate themselves. Other thing is advance. Okay, so return to formation is pretty straightforward. Advance, I'm going to use command view. Advance will make them move several meters in front of the group leader. So basically, they will be a cannon fodder instead of me. So they will be in a formation of a wedge, but in front of me, about I think 50 meters or so. Yeah, so they go about 50 meters in front of you. And now if I move, they'll move also. So they advance 50 meters in front of me. So I'm going to go ahead and order them back into formation. And the next command is stay back. Stay back will have them stay in formation, but 50 meters behind you. As though, like, say you're scouting or something, or you're clearing a path for the AI behind you, your team, if you want them to hold back a little bit. These commands also come in useful when, for instance, you have an armored unit in your team to provide overwatch for you while you're advancing, or some kind of a vehicle that you want to provide, like overwatch 50 meters behind the infantry moving up. So go ahead and go back into the move menu, and I'll tell them to stay back. Stay back is essentially the opposite of advance. They will move 50 meters behind you, and as soon as they move, I'll show you they still remain in formation and they will move with you. So they have moved all the way back there, and they'll move with you now. Okay, so I'll go ahead and ask them to return formation again. And the next commands, essentially the way it looks like is they are grouped up. If you can see, there's a line, a faint line, separating different commands. For essentially 2 through 5 are 1 through 5 basically are commands where your team will stay in formation with you. 6, 7, and 8 will be commands where they will no longer stay in a formation with you. And 9, again, is next waypoint command will be a same respect. They will not stay in formation with you. So we'll go back to that, and flank left and flank right. Flank left, they will essentially remain in formation and stay to the left of you about 50 meters. And as they move there, I'll show that they'll still be in formation. They'll move with you. So they'll all move to my left flank about 50 meters, and now if I move forward, they are moving with me. And if I move backwards, they move backwards with me. So I'll go ahead and ask them to return to formation again. And I'll ask them to flank right this time. So I'll go 5, and they'll go 50 meters to my right. The other nice thing about these flanking and advance and stay back commands is they're in 50-meter increments. So I've told them one time already to go to my right flank. So basically they will all go 50 meters to my right flank. If I tell them again to flank right, they will move another 50 meters. And instead of being 50 meters away from me, they are now 100 meters away from me. So that might be useful if you want them to remain in formation with you, but you don't want them so close to you, either for your own protection, or you want them to basically be a better scout than you. It's quite hard sometimes in this game to see enemy troops, and the AI is just better at spotting things than the human is sometimes. So I'll go ahead and ask them to return back into the formation with us. And one of the things I like about BIS is the British voices. They did a really nice job with that. It really adds some authenticity to playing as a British paratrooper regiment. So now the next command is going to be one where they do not stay in formation. The next command in the move menu is number 6, which is stop. And I'm going to wait for number 4 to get to me. He's a little bit lagging behind. Yeah, he's walking a little slow. So stop, if I tell them to stop, essentially they will no longer follow me. They will wait there and they'll no longer follow me. So stop is basically don't move, is what that is. If I tell them to number 7, which is wait for me, if I tell them to wait for me, essentially wait for me is, I think, no difference to stop, because they're not in formation anymore and they're just standing there. So wait for me and stop, they kind of go hand in hand. I don't know if there's any difference as far as them taking cover or maybe their combat mode. If it's in a different combat mode, wait for me and stop have a different effect. But as far as practical usage in a command environment, as far as I've seen right now, it's essentially the same. The only difference is one command you're telling them to stop, and the other command you're telling them to wait for you. So if I tell them to wait for me and I come back to them, they will still be waiting there until I tell them to return to formation. Same thing with the stop command. They'll only return back into the formation if I tell them to. So I'll tell them to return to formation. The next command, which is find cover, essentially they'll try to find the nearest cover there is, no matter what their combat mode status is, which we'll go to in later part. So find cover. If I tell them to find cover, they will try to find, and then they'll change their stance as well. If there's no cover nearest to them, essentially we're in the middle of an airfield right now, and there's not really any cover. So what they're doing is 2 of them are lying prone, and the other one is standing. Not really the best cover, but lying prone is better than not standing up. Or I mean, lying prone is better than standing up, because you lower your profile and you make it harder for enemy to see you. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell them to return to formation. I'm going to move to a better position or area, if you will, for them to try to find some form of cover at. I think those trees and those bushes and things, um, this might end up being a good place for them to show the find cover command. Essentially, they will look for cover and concealment, and they'll break formation. And if you move around, they will not follow you anymore. They'll be out of formation. So I'm going to come and stand in this, like, area here, and I'll tell them as soon as they catch up to me. They may not follow the same path that you took. They may follow a different path. And that's one of the things about the pathfinding in this game is sometimes the AI will not follow you exactly where you go. So see, they took a different path. They went through this other void in the wall over here, and I came through this rather gigantic one right here. But they arrived at the location where I'm at. So what I'm going to go ahead and tell them to do now is to take cover. And in relation to how they took cover in the middle of the airfield, to say this environment here where there's some bushes and trees and fence and things, there's basically more objects to hide behind. I'll tell them to take cover again. And you'll see they're more apt to finding some form of cover. Again, they change their stance as necessary, but now you can see they're mainly hiding behind a bush. It's not really cover in the sense that it will stop bullets, but it is offering some concealment to the AI. So what I'll do is go ahead and order them to formation, and we'll go back onto the airfield. Or, I mean, not necessarily onto the airfield, but in more of an open space, so you can see what's going on. Alright, so the next command in the move menu is next waypoint. Again, you can see the AI pathfinding at work. I went through this nice big gap in this fence right here, and they're going to go through over here, just like the way they came to me when I was over there. So they'll essentially come back the way they went over there. So while they're doing that, I'll just go through this next command, which is number 9, next waypoint. In the game, most of the time, like say in campaign mode or in single mission mode, you'll have a yellow carrot that'll look like that green one, but it will be yellow, and it will be somewhere, and it will have a description by it. It will say, destroy the ammo cache, or it will, depending on the mission maker or BIS or whatever, it will have a description. Essentially, and that's dependent upon your difficulty mode that you set. Obviously, on higher difficulty mode, you cannot use third-person view. You wouldn't have these artificial enhancements to help you out. You would be in first-person view, and I don't know. It depends on your difficulty whether or not you'd get that waypoint carrot to help you out to get to your objective. But essentially, with the carrot or without the carrot, there would be a waypoint. If I come to the task menu, right now there's no task because I haven't put any. But it would say, there's a task. You would say set that as your current task, and a waypoint would then show up, sending you to that task. Essentially, what you can do is tell your AI to go to that waypoint by just telling them next waypoint command. So they will go to that waypoint. It will be just like a move order, except they will go to that waypoint. Move order I'm going to go through next because it's not actually in this list, if you notice. This list doesn't say move. Move is more of a context command in the game than say in the menu. So next waypoint. There's another way you can use that next waypoint command. Like say I want them to move these hangars. There's a feature where if you left shift and left click at the same time, that little waypoint icon or marker will come up. And essentially what that does is puts a waypoint in a green icon for you, in a green caret for you. See right here, and it tells you how far away it is. It's 196 meters away from my position. And essentially I just made a waypoint without the mission being scripted or a task being defined or assigned to my team through the game. I can go and say, okay, I want to make a waypoint here. I want to make a waypoint here. I can assign a waypoint to my team. I can tell them using this. And another thing is when you go to your map view, your soldier will always crouch and drop his rifle to a lowered position. Normally, you'd be either crouched or standing. You'd have a certain stance and you'd have your rifle pointed up. But if you go to the map, you'd crouch. And I guess that's for realism's sake. A little bit of a simulation there, which is pretty good. When you're looking at a map, obviously you're not going to have your rifle ready to fire. So I'm going to go ahead and tell them all to move to that next waypoint. What they will do is they will move together to that next waypoint, which is that green caret that I put over there. Now they have their own pathfinding. They will not, specifically have a way of going. Generally, they go the most direct way, but sometimes, depending on their combat mode or the pathfinding in the area, in terms of the engine, they will, go a certain path. It may not always be the direct path to the waypoint. Generally speaking, it will be. So, as you can see, they're about maybe 200 meters away from me now, and they're at the next waypoint. And when they get there, they will tell you that they're there. See, now all of them say on the bottom left corner, ready. It went from move to ready. That's another thing. When you give AI orders in the game, you'll see under their picture or their profile or picture, their avatar description on the bottom. When you're commanding, you will see what they're doing. If you give one an action, we'll say action on the top. It will tell you what they're doing. There's also some symbols there. Me being the squad leader, I'm number 1, and I have my picture, if you will, grayed out, meaning that I am a player and not an AI. The other ones are green, meaning that not necessarily they're AI, but they're team members. Essentially, you can have in a single-player environment only one player. It's either because, actually, I'm not sure if it's because it's a player or it's because it's the leader. And essentially, only the leader of the team will see that on the bottom left-hand corner. And you can see the chevrons indicating that I am, my rank. So my rank is higher than the rest of them, and I am like the leader of the team. And the other guys, I can see. Essentially, if it's blank, number 2 is blank. He has no icon next to his number. He is a rifleman. Number 3 and number 4, they have like a bunch of bullets, about 3 bullets in a circle. That is the icon for automatic rifleman and or machine gunner. So I'll go ahead and tell them to return to my formation. So they'll go ahead and return to the formation, which is basically where I'm standing. Wherever the leader is where the formation is. So they'll come back here and form up a wedge again, is basically what's going to happen. I'm waiting for them to come. And I'm going to go to the move command next. And if you want to erase that waypoint, which right now I'm done with that waypoint, I want to erase it, just go back into the map screen, put your mouse cursor over it, and press the delete key. And it'll erase that waypoint. And now the waypoint is gone. And then, you can set another one. Also, if you put one waypoint and you put another one, it will override that other waypoint. If I put one over here near me, it just moved near me. So go ahead and erase that, and there's no more waypoints. If you have a task waypoint and a group waypoint, which is what I was doing, is these markers are group waypoints. These are waypoints for the group that the leader can set. excuse me, um, the group waypoint takes precedent over, say, a task waypoint, which would be in um, yellow. So if I had a yellow waypoint and a green waypoint, and I order my AI, to go to the next waypoint, the waypoint they will go to will be the group waypoint because it will take precedent and priority over the task waypoint. If I erase the group waypoint, then they will go to the task waypoint. Let's just clarify that. Right, so the next command will be the move command. And essentially, and all of these commands I'm telling you, you can tell them to an individual soldier. Like I can tell number 2 to flank, or actually to advance. So everyone will remain in the formation, but 2 will advance 50 meters away. So if, for instance, you want one of your AI guys to take point, and taking point is essentially having a scout in front of you to be the point man, he will go 50 meters in front of wherever the formation is orientated. So right now the formation isn't really orientated anywhere. So I move a little bit to have the formation kind of set its direction. So he's 31 meters away, but the point is he's some distance away from me. The other thing you'll notice is the other AI also followed him, which is actually strange. This is something I ran into now, just practicing this. This is not like I've practiced this. I'm just going through a rundown of how this all works. This is just by the seat of my pants I'm doing this. So I'll tell number 2 to return back into formation. This is number 4. When you put your cursor over them, you can actually see what type of unit it is. Like this is a marksman with a light support weapon, which is basically an automatic rifleman, but does not carry a normal rifle. He carries a rifle that essentially has a scope on it. And the British units, of course, are different than the American units. This is Grenadier. So I was wrong. He's not a rifleman per se, but he's a Grenadier. So he's a rifleman, but has an underslung grenade launcher with him. And this is a automatic rifleman. So he has a SAW light squad automatic weapon. And then this one is a similar role because his weapon is actually an automatic firing rifle, which actually most of these rifles are. Essentially, his rifle. Let me tell them all to wait for me. Essentially, his rifle, if you look, is not like a normal. These are British weapons, of course, but it's not like a normal rifle like me. Like I have a Grenadier's rifle. I have a underslung grenade launcher underneath mine, and a holographic EOTech sight. His has a ACOG scope and a bipod and an extended barrel. So he is more like a long-range automatic precision rifleman, if you will. Or he can fire in semi-auto fire, and he can also fire in full auto with a 30-round magazine for the weapon. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and come back. I think it was about 30 meters away from these guys, so I'm going to come back 30 meters away. And I'm going to show what happens if I tell them to return to formation. Because right now they're waiting for me. Actually, I'm just going to tell. Let me see. I am just going to tell number 3 to return to formation right now. It was, if memory preceded me correctly, number 2 who I told to advance. So I will tell number 4 to return to formation. Oops. That's another thing. When you're in a command view and you use the F keys to select soldier, it will remain selected to that soldier. You will not, after you give an order, you will not deselect the soldier automatically every time you give the order. So number 2, I'll tell him to return formation. And I'll go ahead and tell them all to return to formation. And I'll tell number 2 again to see how the other squad members react. I'll tell number 2 again to advance. So number 2, advance. So when he advances, when number 2 advances, number 4, I think that's number 4 shifts his position to match also. Because number 4 is going not off of the leader to stay in formation, but off of the position of number 2 to stay in formation. So essentially, number 4 knows where number 2 should be in the formation, and like if this was number 4 and number 2, I would be number 2 and this is number 4. He would know he's supposed to be at this position. I don't know if it's a glitch or a bug or what, but essentially what I intended to do was keep number 4 with me in this formation with number 3 and just have number 2 go forward. So I'm going to tell number 4 to return to the formation. And as you can see, it has no effect. Essentially, number 4 is following number 2. What I'm curious about now, this is just something I've just discovered now. I'm going to tell number 3 to advance. And as I tell number 2 to return to formation, which is essentially how you negate the flanking and the advance and get back commands, stay back commands, is to tell them to come back into the formation. So as number 2 returns to the formation, number 4 follows. So I'm going to order number 3 to advance, just for grins. And lo and behold, number 3 goes alone. He doesn't have a partner with him to follow him. Number 2 and number 4 are remaining in this formation here. And here's another thing. It may depend on what type of formation you're in. Right now, by default, we are in a wedge formation. So they will form a wedge. And their position in the wedge is determined by their number in the group. So this is number 3 and this is number 2. So it goes, I'm number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm guessing if there was a number 5 would be here and number 6 would be back over here. So it kind of alternates. So if number 3 had a number 5 on this side, I assume number 5 would also follow number 3 when he advanced. Now the question is, if I tell number 4 to advance, will number 2 follow him? Strangely enough, I asked number 4 to advance, and number 2 did not follow him. So that's something new I just discovered. It seems like wherever the AI is placed in the formation, and it seems to alternate. Like I am number 1, this is number 2 over here, and number 3. It kind of goes back and forth in terms of alternating the numbers. So in this case, because I'm a small team, I told number 2 to advance, and number 3 is on this side, so he's not going to advance with number 2. But number 4, who is on this side, and next in line in the formation to come to me is number 2. It seems rather complicated, to be honest, but when I told number 2 to advance, he essentially changed the formation for number 4, and number 4 followed the position that number 2 was at. If I had a number 5, essentially, if I told number 3 to advance, the same thing would happen for number 5. Number 5 would follow number 3. You notice when I asked number 4 to advance, number 2 did not follow him. It seems to be only as the subordinate, if you will, to that individual soldier will follow them. So number 4, if I had a number 6 and I told number 4 to advance, number 6 would follow number 4, whereas number 2 would stay put. And if I told number 4 to advance, number 6 would follow. If I told number 6 to advance, number 4 would stay where he is. You'll get, if you test it out a little bit, you'll see how it works. It's I don't really use the advance, stay back, and you know, flanking commands all that much, if at all, to be honest, when I'm commanding troops. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going through what every menu item does, so you can see the effect of it in real time, without any scripting, without any, additional things required other than you commanding the AI to do something. Right. Okay, so what I'll go ahead and do is we'll go back into the Move submenu, and we've gone through all of the possible commands you can give in the Move submenu, and realize the only submenu command that is not there is for you to individually move a soldier or a whole team there. So I'll go through that right now. As you can see, by me being in the command view, automatically there is a move there command. You see that little caret, that means move there. So although it's not in the menu, you can order move units to move. Like I want, for instance, my whole team to move to this off-road. Now automatically, this is context related. When I am clicking on when I'm hovering over the, when I'm pointing on the ground, automatically it is a default move there command. The other possible commands, if I hold Alt, it will be different types of command. It will say watch there instead of move there by default, and you also have a choice of suppressive fire. Now suppressive fire, I don't really have a lot of experience with. I haven't really tested too much, but we'll go through that later. But watch there would be more like a engagement command rather than move there. So move there is a default, and if I select this off-road, if I point at this vehicle, essentially, the default changed from move to board. So get in the off-road is what it says. I can also, I don't want them to get in the truck necessarily. I just want them to move towards that position. I can also, using the mouse scrolling button, I can go from changing the default to get in to just move there. So I can just tell them to move there, which is what I'm going to do right now. And as you can see, my soldier gave a hand signal to them also. They have gestures. The squad leader will give a gesture as well to the subordinates. So there is a voice command and also a gesture. Also on some different command modes, you'll hear a kind of like a whispered voice instead of a voice as loud as the commands are being given. So they will whisper, like in stealth mode, they will whisper instead of speaking so loudly. They will also, in all of the modes, they will also continue to use hand signals. So as you can see, they have moved over to the truck, the off-road. I'm going to call it a Land Rover, but for BIS they call it off-road. It looks like Land Rover to me, and that's what it's supposed to be based off of. So I'm just going to call it a Land Rover. So go ahead and call them all to come back into this formation. And you'll see my cursor has changed to a little finger pointing down. That basically allows. Oops. That basically, when I go over one of these commands with the mouse scroll wheel, I can left click, and I can either left click or middle mouse button and essentially command them to come back, do that action, whatever it is in the menu. I can right click and go back to the context menu, and I can right click and get out of the command mode, the view mode. So right click, basically it doesn't cancel the orders and stuff that you've done. It just basically backtracks you to the next either sub menu or let's say I was to do this, and then instead of wanting to give a command, let's say I was about to give a move order to number 2, and then we come under fire, right? I don't want to spend time to backtrack to be able to raise my weapon up and shoot at whatever's shooting at us. In real life, when you're commanding a team, you do have the ability to respond quite quickly to enemies, and that's what's trying to be simulated in this game as well. essentially I can right click and go back to controlling my own person instead of my team. So if I was with my weapon up and I was moving around, say I'm in a close quarters battle environment, I'm ready to shoot at something, but I want to tell one of my guys to go do something. I want to tell two to go over to that car, but then I see an enemy, I could right click quickly and return back to firing. So that's what that right clicking function is good for in this game. So I'll go ahead and tell two, just to show you that you can tell individual soldiers. This context command menu, you can be in any view and use it. It can be in first person view, third, and command view, and I'll tell in command view number 2 to move over to that Land Rover. Now, as 2 moves over to that Land Rover, you can see number 4 came in to kind of shorten the gap in the formation. Because now instead of the wedge being a 4-man formation, it has turned into a 3-man formation. The difference between the move command and the advance command, you do see number 2 has gone about maybe 50 meters in front of us. Except number 2 was given a command individually to move ahead to a certain point, rather than following the formation. Like if I move this formation, number 2 is now out of the formation completely. That is why number 4 didn't follow him, because number 2 was not maintaining the formation. So number 2 essentially is on his own in terms of having a formation or not. Essentially, number 2 will no longer follow wherever I go with the formation. He has separated himself from the formation. It isn't until I tell him to return to the formation that he will do that.